Alright everyone, our last set of notes for Unit 3 is going to be Notes 3.3, The Government at Work. Today we are learning about the bureaucracy. And your essential question, what is the bureaucracy? So we have three features here that distinguish bureaucracies. So bureaucracies are a hierarchy, they have a chain of command that establishes who is in the lead from the top to the bottom. So if we're looking at it like a business, the CEO would be at the top of the business and the hardworking employees would be at the very bottom. It's kind of like that with the executive branch as well. We have the president on top, we have the cabinet, and we have all the members of all of the offices that work for him down at the bottom. We have increased specialization. So for each bureaucrat, they have people that have specific duties and responsibilities. No one can be an expert in everything. So that's why the president has a cabinet of people who are experts in a given field that can advise the president and help the president make decisions. And then there are formalized rules, so established regulations and procedures, a chain of command, who you need to talk to, how to get work done. So the federal bureaucracy is all of the agencies that work in the federal government. Everything. It's the entire system. The president is the chief administrator for all of the federal government, so the president ultimately is in charge way at the top of the federal government. The chief organizational feature of the bureaucracy is the division into areas of specialization. So, like I said, everything is divided into what is specifically for that department. So, for instance, I'll use education since we're in school. We have a Secretary of Education. She is the one in charge of education for the United States, and she reports directly to the president. Everything regarding education goes through them. This sort of shows you what it looks like here. So the Constitution created our three branches of government. So we have our legislative branch, we have our executive, and we have our judicial. If we're looking just at the executive branch here, the executive branch is, of course, the president and the vice president, but it is also all of these departments. And each of these departments has a person in charge. They're called the secretary, and they report directly to the president. So the official name department is reserved for agencies that are of cabinet rank. So we have like the different departments, like the Department of Education. And it kind of standardizes the names to make everything similar so it's easy to understand. The Executive Office of the Presidency, the EOP, is an umbrella agency of all the different special agencies that are for the President's office. So this is staffed by the President's closest advisors and assistants and has been in existence since the 1930s. So the White House office is the president's personal and political staff. So this is the chief of staff, the person that's in charge of the staff of the president. The press secretary, the person that reports the news daily to the reporters of what's going on in the White House. The counsel to the president, and the president's physician, that's the president's doctor. The National Security Council advises the president on military matters and anything that has to do with national security. And the vice president is a part of the National Security Advisor, but then also we have the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense. These pictures here are of when Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State for President Obama. So they were all together once they were defeating Osama bin Laden. When SEAL Team 6 went in and was getting Osama bin Laden, they were all there together, the members of the National Security Council, advising the president on what he should be doing. This is the White House. This is where the president lives and works. Most of the work the president does is in the West Wing of the White House. So this kind of just shows you the West Wing over here on the west side of the building, of course, and the buildings there, or the rooms that are involved in the West Wing. The Oval Office here is where the president works. But the White House is an enormous house, so the family is not going to obviously take up that whole thing. They also work in the White House. The White House has libraries, it has kitchens, it has a carpenter shop, a flower shop, a bowling alley, all kinds of things in the White House. The Office of Management and Budget prepares the federal budget each year for Congress, and that gets submitted, of course, to the president. The Office of National Drug Control Policy was created in the late 1980s, and that was in response to the war on drugs under the Reagan administration. So it really came into effect under his president, under his, sorry, the next person in line that followed him, H.W. Bush, his former vice president. And then we also have the Council of Economic Advisors, so they advise the president on anything regarding the economy. The executive departments are called the cabinet departments, so these are the units of federal administration. Each department is headed by a secretary. So, although secretary may sound like a job that's not necessarily in charge, the secretary is the one in charge of all of the cabinet or all of the departments for the executive branch. The cabinet is an informal advisory body. The heads of the executive departments of the cabinet. The president appoints each of these heads of the departments, and it's subject to Senate approval. So these here are Obama's cabinets and President Trump's cabinets. So this is President Obama's cabinet here. So these are all the secretaries of all of the different departments. And then this is President Trump's cabinet. Again, here you can see his portrait of Andrew Jackson over there. So now quite a few of these people have changed. He's had a lot of different people running all of these different departments. President Trump has had conflict with a lot of the people that he's appointed. So some of these are no longer accurate. But they have official portraits and they are in charge of all of these different departments. All of these are the different cabinet positions. So we have Department of Education, Department of Energy, Department of Agriculture, Department of the Treasury, Department of Defense, Department of Justice, Homeland Security. And then the executive branch is also in charge of independent executive agencies like the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and NASA, which of course is our space agency. The executive branch also has independent regulatory commissions. But that's not going to be on your test, so I'm not going to make you go into those. But in case you're interested, the independent regulatory commissions are things like the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, or the Federal Trade Commission, Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The government is also responsible for a few corporations. So government corporations are also under the president's control. So like the United States Postal Service, that is an example of government corporations. They carry out business-like activities for the government, but they're actually part of the government as well. So the Postal Service or like Amtrak, the trains, those corporations are all part of the government. Civil service are people that perform the administrative work of the government, except for the armed forces. So these are people who work at the Capitol building in Sacramento. These are people that work for the different departments. These are people who worked for the government. They are considered the civil service. That's kind of just what it looks like, the civil service, people who work for the civil service. So we do have regulations about the political activities of those who work in the civil service. So they, of course, are allowed to vote. They can participate in our democracy, but they're not supposed to really take an active stance within elections. So they shouldn't be engaging in party work. They shouldn't be working for either political party while on government property. Of course, not while they're doing their job. They shouldn't be collecting political contributions from subordinates. So, like, if you're the boss, you shouldn't be asking everyone who you work for to donate to a specific campaign, things like that. There's limits to make sure that we don't have corruption. And that is the end of your notes on the executive branch. So don't forget to write a summary, just a couple sentences about what you learned today.